If I asked you right now to close your eyes and picture the modern face of PlayStation, who comes to mind? For most of us, it's probably Kratos standing in the Nordic snow looking absolutely furious. Maybe it's Ellie gripping a hunting rifle in a ruined Seattle. Or Aloy staring down a massive mechanical T-Rex. For the last decade, Sony has planted its flag firmly in the territory of massive, multi-million-dollar cinematic action adventures. We're talking heavy, mature stories, end-of-the-world stakes, and heroes that are carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders. But right now, one of the absolute biggest and most important success stories for the PlayStation brand doesn't feature a grizzled survivor. It doesn't rely on hyper-realistic motion capture, Hollywood actors, or depressing storylines. It's just a tiny, cheerful robot. Astro Bot has officially evolved. What started out as a charming VR experiment and a free pack-in tech demo has morphed into one of PlayStation's most valuable modern franchises. And today I want to talk about how this little guy pulled off a silent takeover, why its sales figures are completely defying modern industry trends, and most importantly, what this massive shift could mean for the future of gaming on PlayStation. Let's start with the hard numbers here, because this is where the story gets really eye-opening. Astro Bot doesn't always command the same daily headline space as something like Spider-Man or The Last of Us, but the industry estimates circling right now are staggering. We are looking at global sales of roughly 4.3 million copies, pulling in an estimated $250 million in total revenue for PlayStation. Not bad for a little robot. Now, Sony hasn't plastered these exact numbers on a massive corporate billboard just yet, but the data points to a reality that is very hard to ignore. Astro Bot is an absolute juggernaut. But what's really fascinating isn't just that total number, it's how the game is achieving it. In the modern gaming industry, almost every massive blockbuster lives and dies by its launch week. A game comes out, it sells 3 or 4 million copies out of the gate, fueled by years of marketing hype, and then sales completely drop off a cliff after month 1. Astro Bot is totally rejecting that model. It is playing the long game. Industry estimates suggest it sold a mind-boggling 600,000 copies in 2025 alone, and it continues to push roughly 100,000 copies every single month. That kind of consistency is the absolute holy grail for a video game publisher. It's what the industry calls an evergreen title. It means that new players are actively seeking this game out long after the launch window has closed. It's not just surviving on pre-order hype, it's surviving on pure word of mouth, incredible reviews, and a steady drip of new console adopters who are buying a PlayStation 5 today. So how did a traditional 3D platformer manage to carve out this kind of insane staying power in an era dominated by live service shooters and massive open worlds? A huge part of the puzzle comes down to what I like to call Sony's Trojan horse strategy, Astro's Playroom. Think about how brilliant of a marketing move that was from day one. Every single PlayStation 5 console comes with Astro's Playroom preloaded on the hard drive for free. Millions of players turned on their shiny new console for the very first time, and the first thing they played was this gorgeous physics-based platformer designed to show off the power of the PlayStation 5 and the DualSense controller. On the surface, it looked like a simple tech demo to show how cool the haptic feedback and adaptive triggers were. In reality, it was a brilliant onboarding tool. It introduced millions of people to the character, the mechanics, and the sheer joy of that universe without charging them a single penny. Well, I know you had to buy the console, but work with me here, people, you know what I mean. By the time the full standalone Astro Bot game dropped, players already had an emotional connection to the character. Some players might, mess around in the free version for a few weeks, realise how incredibly fun it is, and then willingly drop the cash on the full game. Every single time a PS5 is sold anywhere in the world, a new potential customer is being directly funneled into the Astro Bot ecosystem. It's a marketing pipeline that almost no other franchise in gaming has the luxury of utilising. But a great pipeline only works if the actual product delivers. And that brings us to Team Asobi's core design philosophy. Astro Bot reminds us of something the wider gaming industry has kind of forgotten lately. Games are allowed to just be fun. Don't get me wrong, I love a deep 50-hour RPG with complex skill trees and cinematic cutscenes as much as everyone else, but sometimes you just want to pick up a controller and feel instant gratification. Every single second you spend moving Astro feels incredible, whether you're running across different textures like glass, metal or mud, which you feel perfectly through the controller, or using quirky power-ups like the bulldog booster or the monkey climbing gloves. The game prioritizes mechanical joy over cinematic fluff. It's packed with hundreds of subtle nods to PlayStation history, which I just love, turning the entire experience into a massive celebration of why we fell in love with gaming in the first place. It doesn't waste your time with endless tutorials or bloated open world fetch quests which just feel like filler. It throws creative, shifting level design at you at breakneck pace, ensuring that you never are doing the same thing for more than 10 minutes. And that accessibility is bringing in an entirely different demographic than the usual PlayStation crowd. Look, I know we all love Sony's prestige titles, these mature titles we've had for years, but let's be real, they are highly exclusive. Some of them are very violent, they can be dark, and they can demand a massive amount of your time and emotional investment. Astro Bot cuts straight through all of that friction. It appeals to kids, it appeals to adults, it appeals to families, it appeals to casual players who maybe haven't touched a video game since the 90s. The data actually shows a massive, fascinating overlap also here between Astro Bot players and the audience for these big cultural hub type games like Fortnite, which is great because let's get them off of that rubbish onto good games like Astro Bot. Because for the last 2 generations, PlayStation has essentially handed the family-friendly all-ages market over to Nintendo on a silver platter. Nintendo has utterly dominated that space with their reliable mascots like Mario and Kirby, who have been around for decades, and Nintendo constantly keep using them, so they're always fresh in the memory of fans and never forgotten about. Sony kind of abandoned that whole area to chase the blockbuster Hollywood feel in their games, which has worked very well for them, but Astro Bot is suddenly giving PlayStation a legitimate, incredibly lucrative foothold back in a massive market sector where they have historically struggled to compete in recent years. For gamers who grew up during the original PlayStation era like me, watching this happen feels incredibly nostalgic. It honestly feels like a return to a very specific golden age of gaming. If you grew up with the PS1 or the PS2, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The very identity of the PlayStation brand used to be built on the backs of mascot platformers. We had Crash Bandicoot, we had Spyro the Dragon, we had Jak and Daxter, we had Sly Cooper, we had Ratchet and Clank, and later on we had Little Big Planet. These were the games that defined entire console generations and moved millions of systems, but as hardware got more powerful and graphics got more realistic, publishers pivoted. They wanted games to look like live action movies, and sadly, a lot of those beloved platforming icons were left behind to gather dust. What Astro Bot proves definitively, with millions of sales and dollars to back it up, is that the hunger for these types of games never actually went away. The desire for a tight, imaginative, brightly coloured 3D platformer has been there this entire time. We are seeing a bit of a renaissance for the genre right now, and Astro Bot is riding the absolute crest of that wave. The slow, steady, snowballing success of this little robot should be a massive wake-up call to executives and publishers everywhere. Success doesn't always have to look like a record-shattering launch weekend. Astro Bot sweeping major categories like winning Game of the Year obviously gave it a fantastic boost in the mainstream visibility, but awards alone don't guarantee long-term viability. What guarantees long-term sales is a high quality product that people genuinely love playing. leading them to tell their friends, their families, and anyone else who will listen, like me telling you right now. And that right there might be the single most important takeaway for Sony. Astro isn't just a tech demo character anymore, he is a legitimate frontline ambassador for the entire PlayStation brand. He is a face that people immediately associate with pure gaming joy. Very few modern franchises can genuinely please everyone, from a 5-year-old child playing on a controller for the first time to a hardcore player, looking for that platinum speedrun of every level, to someone who just wants to unwind after a long day at work. Moving forward into the rest of this console generation and looking ahead to the future, I think it's safe to say Astro Bot is no longer a side project. It is no longer a cute little experiment to show off hardware features. It is arguably one of Sony's strongest, healthiest and safest long-term bets in their entire portfolio. If it's still pulling in numbers like this well over a year into its lifespan, it is inevitable a sequel is going to be an absolute monster at retail. And Astro Bot could be to PlayStation what Mario is to Nintendo, and it's something that PlayStation has been missing. It doesn't have that one character that's been there throughout all the PlayStation consoles like Nintendo has, and this could be really powerful for PlayStation going forward into the future. But I want to pass the question over to you guys. Do you think PlayStation is just going to sit back, count the cash and keep Astro as a isolated success story? Or do you think this massive win is going to be the exact springboard we've been waiting for to bring back the golden era of platformers? Are we finally going to see Sony greenlight a new Jak and Daxter, a modern Sly Cooper, or a brand new platforming IP because of this? That would be pretty cool. If you want more about the future of Astro Bot and all the PlayStation first party games, check out this video on screen right here, where we do a deep dive into what every PlayStation studio is working on right now.